Wow. Yay. All right. Welcome to the panel. This is the DJs and electronic music panel. 3 of us are playing the rave tomorrow night.
Rave?
Rave. Okay. And Ray, you're playing the pool party, right?
Yes. Where's the rave?
Yeah. Where's the rave?
Yes.
Main events, whatever that is. I just got here. So, my name's Ben Briggs. I came here from Orlando, Florida. I am the owner and operator and incidental patriarch of Tiny Waves. We're a record label that started out doing video game remixes, but we primarily do like melodic EDM. And we also are a promoter in Orlando. We throw shows. We have an event called Cos Rave, which is our cosplay rave series. We do raves at a lot of conventions, including this convention. Tiny Waves is managing the whole main stage rave this year, and we also work with conventions like MAGFest. We do the Pose nightclub. We recently did Queen City Anime Convention, and we also do Holiday Matsuri down in Orlando, everybody's favorite con. But I have been in transit for 27 hours, and I got here an hour ago. So I'm gonna attempt, yeah, thank you. Thank you. It is really hard for me, actually. I'm kind of a martyr when you think about it. But I'm just gonna, I introduced myself. That's the Tiny Waves bit. You know, we're a record label that focuses on the primary sort of value proposition being, how do I put it? Don't be a dick, I guess. It's like, we realized very quickly in our journey that we didn't want to just be another video game label or another future-based anime girl label or just another promoter. We realized that if you put artists first and you go out of your way for people and you are receptive to criticism and you basically, we take Don't Be a Dick out to every possible sort of logical conclusion, and we try to always be improving to that 100% where you're not accidentally taking advantage of someone or letting somebody down, you know. And we just, in the entertainment industry, you get a lot of people who are taking advantage, and we got sick of it, and that's how we got here. And I'm very lucky to have such a thriving support system that still follows what we're doing to this very day. It's an honor to be surrounded by so many talented people every day of my life, and they're all my best friends, and if I ever fuck it up, they will crucify me. So that's accountability, baby. But myself, my name is Ben Briggs. I remix video game music primarily for a living. I've been doing that for the better part of 20 years. I started on Overclocked Remix, and then I went to Game Chops, and then we started Tiny Waves shortly thereafter. Done a lot of stuff with MAGFest, but yeah, I started Tiny Waves while I was still probably not ready to start Tiny Waves is when I started Tiny Waves, but we got very lucky. We hit the Undertale thing when it was hot. We hit the future-based thing when it was the biggest thing on SoundCloud. And, you know, we've been riding that wave ever since. But that's what I do. I remix video game music. I DJ as a means to play that music loudly for other people to listen. And, you know, I'm an entertainer at heart. I just like to make people forget about whatever bullshit they have going on for however much time they're looking at me. So that's what I do. But we're going to go down the line and introduce everybody else. So, you know, just introduce yourself, say what your area of expertise is, a little background about your career and what you consider yourself best at. That way you know what kind of parts of the industry we represent. And then we're just going to open the floor for questions. And it's a pretty intimate panel. It'll probably be more of a dialogue. It's fine. We're not doing stand-up up here, so you can heckle if you want. But why don't we start with the Red Panda, the baby of the group, the newcomer.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Jordan. I produce and perform under the name TheRedPanda. As Ben has stated, I am a complete baby to all of this. This is my first MAGWest. This is my first kind of convention thing I've really been doing. I've been producing since 2018 under TheRedPanda. What really got my name out there, quote unquote, was through a game called Tori 2. Which
it's really good.
And a lot of fun. It literally just reached out to a developer on Twitter, and I was like, I like the first game. Are you doing a second soundtrack a second game, different project, and he was like, yeah. And everybody's always trying to send like stuff to people like, hey, like, do you need a composer? And I actually sent him an email, and when he listened to it, he was like, just to be sure, like, this is your music, right? And I was like, yeah, this is all mine. And he was like, good, we're using you, because get all kinds of submissions all the time and they don't take it. So I consider myself kind of lucky in that era. And then in terms of Tiny Waves, I've been, listening to Tiny Waves, the record label, since you guys came out. When was that?
I would have been it was like the end of 2016 when we put out Straight from the Underground, the Undertale compilation.
So I was still in middle school. So yeah.
I'm turning to dust. Good Lord.
So yeah, that was definitely my intro, and then now I'm here with the Tiny Waves people, and I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. I just want to add a little bit. This kid is just insanely cracked at synthesizer performance and also jazz composition, like the best, like rivaling T-Lopes in talent. No exaggeration. The Tori 2 soundtrack is obscenely good. And yeah, I think how you got here is I saw a video of you playing on he was playing on a table like this high to a crowd of basically no one, and like just hunched over, like a table like lower than this, just like hunched over. But he was going going so hard, like didn't matter that there was nobody in the room. There were like 3 people, and he was just leaving it all on the table. And I was like, that's always what we're looking for, that enthusiasm, no matter how big the crowd is. You're just excited to be playing the music that you like and your own shit. And then ended up checking out your music, and I was blown away. Like, absolutely legendary composer. So just, not for nothing, this kid's really good at what he does. You want to go? Sure.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name's Nick. I go by 2 aliases. Probably the better known one is VGR, which stands for Video Game Remixes. Been doing this since 2015, I want to say. Doing bootlegs and stuff. I started out my career doing like kind of bootleg remixes of Steven Universe. Put it on the Steven Universe subreddit. I am kind of a Luddite. I don't understand computers. It took a lot of brain power to figure out what a subreddit was. And I did it, and it went like it got pretty big numbers on the subreddit, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep on doing this, just drum loop, Nexus, original audio file, and I just kept on doing that for a little while, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll like actually learn how to make music properly, and went from there. Undertale happened, did a whole thing with that. I'm gonna just skip to like that non-bootleggy stuff. Now, full-time musician, make original music under the alias Noke. I have a Monster Cat release that's also on Rocket League. I've worked on a track with Lily Pichu, popular Twitch streamer, and I do some work with Cartoon Network as well. Yeah, VGR is still plugging along. I just put out a Splatoon bootleg today. If you guys like Splatoon, I like heard the what's it called, the new deep cut thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So it's kind of a fun little medium between doing freelance work and like playing shows and like working with companies, and being able to say, oh, this shit's kind of hot right now. I should probably get on this, and just doing a little balancing act with that. But it's fun. It keeps things fresh, and quite frankly, my passion more so than remixing is doing original stuff. It's been on the back burners because you got to keep on working on what's hot, but I'm pretty stoked about original stuff coming out in the near future as well.
And not just to add on, I mean, we've been friends for a really long time now. Met you when you were basically a baby. You just showed up at Anime Festival Orlando like, I'm here now, and just kind of followed us around. But already was insanely talented, and he didn't really mention, but kind of just cracked the code on video game remixing on YouTube specifically, and the search engine optimization on naming yourself video game remixes is pretty genius, and somehow nobody thought to do that before him, and he also is just like one of the best to ever do it. So there's a natural synergy there. But really, like in terms of like YouTube channels that do video game remixes and remixes of pop culture, like truly one of the greats. Absolutely holds his own against the other biggest channels in the game. So an insanely clean production. So just you know, he's also very good at what he does, is what I'm saying. Now, Ray's introduction is going to be kind of an introduction for all of us because we've never really met. So please enlighten us.
Okay.
I mean, I checked out a little bit, but...
Okay, wait, what did you check out?
I checked out some Twitch VODs, really good DJing, very classy stuff, and you know, a little more interesting than what your average Twitch DJ does. And also your Bandcamp is full of some very, very legit production. So, you know.
Yes, the Bandcamp, where all the real bootlegs actually live, because Spotify won't upload them.
Some terminology. A bootleg is when you make a remix that samples the full original produced song. So if you take a song and maybe you EQ out the low end and then you add a different beat and you add instruments on top of it, that's what a bootleg is. You're taking the full song that's finished and mastered and you're using that audio to remix it. So you're not using stems, you know, it's just the full original track. That's a bootleg.
Yes, the label never hits you up. That's the bootleg.
Yeah. Burning bridges.
Yes, pretty much. So I go by the artist name Ray Reck. I've been producing music and being a performer since 2012. Originally, I actually got started by rapping. Interestingly enough, I was looking for a particular type of beat, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try to make it. And back then I was really into like turntablism, like the art of, you know, different types of scratching on turntables and like methods and like skills and like other people that went on to the DMC World Championships, which is like a big, you know, kind of like they like battle, scratch each other, a DJ competition. So yeah, I was really into that, and then I started making beats. And I was also DJing a lot of remixes, so I was a huge fan of remixing. But I was also a huge fan of video games, so that never went away, and naturally it just merged. And then I came out with like a Zelda album. I use a lot of like hardware stuff. So my primary favorite thing to use is this SP404, which is just, I've dropped it, it's not, you know, it's definitely, I've fixed it a couple times, but it's great. It actually is a lot better than a laptop. But I also produce on Ableton. So I'm actually a lecturer for electronic music production and history over at UC Berkeley. Wow. That one's really fun. I get to teach all the little kids about the rave, you know, but I have to tell them not to repeat it. Yeah, so I DJ a lot of random stuff. So I love video games. Like I love remixing video game stuff as well. I like making hip hop beats, lots of bootlegs. I like DJing for dancers. What else? Yeah, and I also like to DJ raves. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't have anything to add because I've only just met you, but that all sounds really fucking dope. And you're obviously talented, so. So obviously the thing that ties us all together is video game music. It's not surprising where we are right now, where we physically are together. Video game music is sort of a unifying factor in, I would say, most DJs, most electronic music. Like everybody, you know, enough time has passed that I think we all have a favorite video game soundtrack. But yeah, so, you know, it makes sense that we're all up here, but you can hear the variety of different, you know, areas of the entertainment industry that we're in. You know, we're all doing completely different things to, you know, similar levels of success that are, you know, could be considered their own cottage industries in themselves, but like there's this through line of being a fan of video games and video game music. So we probably, if you have questions about electronic music production, if you have questions about DJing, if you have questions about running a record label, if you have any sort of questions related to the types of things that you just heard, this is, I don't think we have to have people come up to the microphone unless you really want to. I think we could probably hear you unless projecting is not your thing. But yeah, we can open the floor to questions and get a dialogue going. Who wants to go first?
I got a question about synthesis for RedPanda. What are your favorite go-to synths, whether it be hardware or software, and how do you get like a grasp on using like, I guess how important do you think having a grasp on those things is? Because I do a lot of sample-based stuff, and that's how I get my synths. That's how I get like my synth sounds. I'll just be on Splice, and it's like, oh, this is a Korg atmosphere. I love it. I don't have to like learn anything, but at the same time, I have FM8, and I'm like, you know, I got that like 2 years ago. I started using it in 2018 too, but like I'm just all over the place. And yeah, FM8's really, really hard. So.
Are you specifically asking about like sound design?
Sound design,
okay.
Yeah. How to make some cool stuff.
Good question. Well, because you mentioned samples, I wish I used samples in the way you did, where like you take the sample and then you turn it into like a different synth. I've done that occasionally, but not all the time. Usually, what I will do is I will actually because Splice is a godsend. So you go to Splice, you find like whatever synth it is. And then what I'll do is I'll find something that I like, and then I'll either try to recreate that myself, or I'll download it, and then pretty much, what's the word, backwards?
Reverse engineer.
Thank you. And then in terms of hardware, because I use Serum is my main go-to, which is a staple in EDM. Like if you're doing any kind of EDM, Serum is definitely going to be in the know. But in terms of hardware synthesizers, that is a whole different ballgame just because there's so many. It really depends on your style of synthesis, because for me, I'm very cut through the mix type lead. I'm going crazy versus something that's a little more right. And there are certain things I just got rid of a Behringer DeepMind synthesizer that I had that was more for atmospheric leads versus the almost digi-fusion that I like to do. Yeah.
I want to define some terms here. So we mentioned Splice. If anyone's looking to get into music production, Splice is a service that you pay monthly. They offer a bunch of stuff, but the main thing that it does is just splice.com. I think it was started by Deadmau5? He helped?
I don't think so.
No? He probably just bought some of it. But basically, back in the day, you used to have to buy samples in these. You would get a big box with a bunch of CD-ROM discs in it, and you would have to sift through all these crappy samples to get the good ones that are on there. And it'd be $120, $80, $300. And Splice made it so you just pay them a monthly fee. You get credits for Serum presets, presets for other synths, samples, drum samples, even instrument samples. Like my Temp Shop remix is completely just chopped and screwed glitch hop samples. I didn't do any sound design there except for just arranging some samples that I downloaded for fun. But Splice is an invaluable tool. If you're trying to get into music production, Splice is the ultimate shortcut because it gives you access, for $10 a month or something, $12 a month, you get access to every drum sample, every preset you could possibly have for Serum. And you mentioned Serum as your primary soft synth. I also use Serum. My sound design chops, I've been making music for the better part of 20 years. I don't know how to do sound design at all. I just basically use presets and tweak them, and I've never put in the effort. I just have sounds that I like, and so basically what I'm getting at is if you're trying to get into music, Splice is a very invaluable tool, and you should definitely look into it. They also allow you to rent Serum. You rent it to own, so it's $10 a month until you've paid it off, and then you just own it after that. But yeah, and just to the greater point, there's not really any limitations to getting into electronic music anymore. So if you're oh, this is daunting, this is scary, the demo version of FL Studio is free. Not that I recommend FL Studio, even though I use FL Studio. Demo version is full featured and free. Splice is $10 a month, and you're off to the races, right? You're ready to start producing and learning mixing and stuff. Yeah, did you want to get into sound design? Because you do a lot of actually working with Serum.
Yeah, so I obviously also love to just mess around with presets for sure. Like that's the best way to learn, is to get like a sound that you really love and mess around and see like how, especially with Serum, how like some of the filters work, how some of the distortion works, being able to automate that. The like just cutoff and resonance, which like change the envelope of the music, completely changes that, and you can modulate that with like actual visuals. That's the great part about Serum, despite it like eating up your CPU instantly, is that it's all extremely visual. That's what it has on like Massive and Sylenth and Nexus, but that's just presets. Nexus is also great. Like, don't let anybody shit on Nexus. Avicii used that and made it the best thing out. Nexus is great.
Nexus is great.
Nexus is great.
You need a real sounding sound.
Yeah, and it's full and it's dumb, and like just turn the reverb off because it's terrible. But yeah, I mean, what I've been doing recently is using Serum, like making very base level Serum stuff, like just out of saw waves, because saw waves are the best, and don't let anybody tell you different. And like, and running it through some like separate VSTs. There's this new genre that's like rhythm, but like future bass. It's called color bass.
Yeah.
I don't really love listening to it. I think it's very impressive, like from a very scientific, mathematical standpoint. Like if you're on that, like, I only listen to like peak sound design shit, like that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool to listen to, but to me it sounds like Rainbow, like Optimus Prime shouting at you through a megaphone. But like the tools that they use are pretty neat. Like using a vocoder on Serum or anything else, genius. Automatically turns one note into a full chord. And I'm like, damn, that sounds pretty cool. So I use pitch map now, and I'll run just a straight up like sine wave or saw wave through pitch map, and it will turn it into like really resonant chords. And you can do that with splice samples too. You can do that with anything and turn it into something really cool. But emphasis on like modulating and using automation more so than like, oh, I need to make the perfect patch, or I need to find the perfect preset. Like, no, do it and make it dynamic by automating it in real time is my 2 cents.
And for the uninitiated, automation is when you tell a program to, you have a set of knobs and modifiers and sliders in your synth or in your DAW, and you set it to change over time automatically, and you can draw the curve. So, automating, and I wanted to piggyback off of this, like resampling, or just the only type of sound design that I don't really do sound design in a synth. I'll start with a very simple sound, and then I'll run it through a lot of different effects, like even just default, FL Studio effects. Like you can take a saw wave, just a basic saw wave, and then you can run it through chorus, and then you can run that chorus, you can run a distortion or an overdrive on top of that chorus, and all of a sudden you have a sound with way more character, and you have all of these parameters on your different effects and this original synth itself. So sound design doesn't have to be understanding wave tables in Serum. It can just be messing around with different effects, running it through. There's a cool plugin called Little Alter Boy. It's primarily an auto-tune plugin, but it's very simplistic, but it has this like character to it, and I've had a lot of fun running non-vocal sounds through Little Alter Boy and using its onboard overdrive and messing with the formant shifting and the pitch. So, when we say sound design, a lot of people think that when you say sound design, you mean something that's happening inside of a synth. That's not necessarily it. Sound design is literally designing sound. You can do it with anything. And, if you don't understand wavetables, if you don't understand what, anything does, like you can just start running it through multiple effects and see what happens. And like experimentation is the name of the game, and you're going to end up with something that you like eventually, and you can EQ it and you can mix it, and it's just, the sky's the limit. And I just want to keep driving home this point that if you're trying to get into producing, don't be intimidated, because nobody knows what they're doing, and it is absolutely the Wild West. Like especially now with like hyperpop being one of the most popular styles of music, like they don't follow any of the rules of, like we grew up like you have to mix clean, and they're like, we're clipping on purpose every single song, and like, if you can get away with that, then you can get away with anything. So Ray, did you want to add anything about like resampling or how you do sound design when you produce beats, or like, you know?
Sure. I mean, I run my stuff through a lot of hardware, but it's really similar. I'll just be like layering things over and over. So if I have, let's say I'm going from a record into my mixer into my SP404, I'll run it through like MFX 16 or something like that to give it like a lot of lo-fi music has that, you know, really generic wobble, I call it. Because it sounds like you're like riding this roller coaster and you're like, is it over? Like they all sound the same, the samples sound really similar. But I'll run that through something, and I'm a huge, I love working with vocals, so like I'll run it through that, and then I'll run it through Ableton, and then I'll do like this effect called ping pong delay, which actually uses like stereo sound, so it'll like pan it from like the left and the right, and then it just makes it really trippy because if you think about sound in like stereo, right, you're like, you know, building all the synths and stuff, but then you start getting into like adding delays on like one side and the other side, and then you have your headphones in and you're like, whoa, like there's a laugh going in over here, or there's like the synth only going into here, or maybe like, you know, throughout the song, like things like move through the soundscape, so it's like really interesting to imagine like how you want to set it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of effects that, you know, make music sound like it's in a physical space. That's like the primary function of reverb, is to make it sound like it's, you know, your sound is happening in a room with natural reverberation. But ping pong delay is a great example. And just auto panning, like if you have something that's not fitting very well in your mix, you can set it to automatically pan left and right. And so whenever it's like further over in the right, if you have a lot of stuff that's panned center, all of a sudden that instrument comes out of the mix more when it's over there. And then maybe when it's panning through the center, you can't hear it as much, but when it gets over to the right side, you can hear it again. And it has this nice sort of like swirly, spacey vibe to it. And again, it kind of puts you, when you're, especially with headphones, it puts you sort of in a space. But yeah, that was a lot of good stuff. Everyone's so smart. You're all so, your expertise. I wanted to also, I mean, we mentioned running a record label, we mentioned remixing video game music, production, DJing, but also, you know, throwing events if you have questions about that, if you have questions about composing or, you know, video game music or, you know, learning to compose music. We can also take questions about that. Yeah?
Yeah, this question is like more on the social side of things.
Sure.
Well, I've been making music kind of like by myself for a long time. I actually also started on Overclocked Remix 20 years ago.
Wow. I'm so sorry. We survived. No, I'm kidding. OC Remix is legendary, but it's been a long road here.
My posts were awful.
Yeah, I mean, me too. My posts in the unmoderated forum were awful. We can't do this. This is not the place. But sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I've been making music on and off by myself for a long time, but never really as part of like a community or a scene. And I think that's something I really like, but I don't really know how to like take steps into that.
So are you asking about how to find a scene, or are you asking about how to like start one from scratch, like, or just in general to?
Sort of that first one, how to like find other people to.
Well, you're in the right panel for that. There's a lot of insane talent sitting in this room right now, and it's not just the four of us.
Everyone's a legitimate musician except for me, the one imposter.
I mean, there's no such thing as, honestly, like, don't talk about my new friend that way. You are talented, and the thing is, like, this is a weird anecdote. The first time I ever met Grant Kirkhope, we all know Grant Kirkhope now as like just the local legend of the internet. But when I met him, I was hero worshiping, and he kept deflecting. He's like, just because I made Banjo-Kazooie doesn't mean I'm better than you. You're going to do more things than me. You have more power. You're just as powerful as me, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't believe him, right? And then eventually it dawned on me that like nobody knows what they're doing. And as long as you're doing something and you never give up, my friend Water Spirit, who's a hard dance producer, who's very much on the come up in the festival scene, they have this phrase, there's just not that many of us. And what we mean by that is there's not that many people who create either music or content or whatever that don't quit. And the reality is, like, it all comes back to Undertale. Determination is really the one skill that you have to have, because no matter how good you are, you could be ignored for 10, 20, 30 years until somebody discovers one random song, and it's going to be your least favorite song, and it's going to pop off, right? Like, all of my audience's favorite songs are ones that I'm like, oh, I just crapped that out, you know? And then my favorite songs don't get any plays. So this idea that, like, you know, you're not good enough or you're not valid, it's like, no, if you're doing it, you're doing it, and it's only a matter of time before you do something that you're going to be really happy with. And if you're making stuff that makes you happy and you're putting it out there with, you know, especially now, we're in the golden age of cringe, you know? Like, if you're feeling it and people see that you're feeling it and you're attracting haters that are saying that you're cringe, you're on the right track, because that means you're being genuine. And people who are irony poisoned can't handle genuine emotion and happiness and connection and the bravery that it takes to put yourself out there. So, yeah, no, don't, you know, everybody has the potential to do something great, especially when it comes to content creation, because there's no rules, and, like, there's infinite audience out there. There's always another nerd who's going to fall in love with something that you made, and it's going to be somebody's favorite thing, even if you know, sometimes, and just finish something. Just finish something and upload it and post it on social media, send it to your friends and spread it around. But back to your question about joining community, yeah, all I can say is, like, you're in the right panel. Like, talk to me afterwards. Like, we're constantly trying to build a bigger, and we're trying to build the biggest, bestest community of creators that are all supporting each other. So, you know, but it's okay to, it's okay to cold message somebody sometimes. If there's somebody you look up to and you just want to say hi, like, don't be weird about it, but, like, you can send a cold DM and just be like, hey, I made this thing, like, I don't expect anything, but, like, you know, maybe you like it, or, like, I just ask them a question. You know, they may just, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to get mad at you, and then you're going to know that person sucks. So, like, you know, just put yourself out there.
I can attest to that. You know, the only reason I even got in contact with Ben was actually through Nick. I messaged Nick on Instagram, and I think I sent you, like, an email with some music or something like that in it, and you checked it out, and we FaceTimed. You had, like, the coolest conversation with me. I was like, oh, I'm talking to VGR. It's like, who talks to this guy? He's like, yeah, and he's like, you're, like, moving or something. I don't know. You're really super preoccupied.
That's the thing. Everyone's just a regular person.
Yeah.
And if they don't act like a regular person, run. Like, if you're hero worshiping somebody and they eat it up, that's not a person. That is a monster you kill for XP. Like, get out of there. Like, the real genuine people who are making the best content, they will give you the time of day if they can. Some people are too busy. Ray, you said you had something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, you could even keep it, like, really simple. If you have, like, you know, there's the online version of it, right? Which is cool because it's like, you know, like you said, you could, like, message somebody and be like, hey, like, you want to do this or you want to collaborate or something like that. But then there's also the in-person stuff that I like, where it's just, like, super simple. Like, it doesn't even have to include other people or the scene or anything. It's literally, like, so simple, where you're like, hey, want to make a song? You know? And then it just makes it so simple, because you're like, cool, like, now you're not thinking about the output of it. You're not thinking about, like, the other stressors. And I feel like I have way more fun just, like, nerding out with, like, a friend. Like, even if it sounds ugly, like, you're not thinking about that. You're like, yo, I'm just having fun with, like, the one person or, like, the collaboration. And I feel like I have way more fun that way than thinking of, like, you know, like, a lot. But that being said, I also have been on forums. Like, I started sampling on the Stones Throw. Stones Throw is, like, a hip-hop record label. And, like, nobody knows each other, right? But it's, like, old school. It's not like Instagram. It's just, like, forums where they, like, post a sample and then, like, the rules for the sample. And then everyone on that forum, like, starts flipping the sample in, like, 4 days. And then they come back, and whoever votes, you know, the best version of it, the next person picks. So it's kind of like even, like, finding that online presence that's, like, not, I don't know, not as individual, but as, like, group oriented.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think a more modern example would be, like, subreddits for specific genres of music. You know,
subreddits have good ones. Like, if you just look up the genre.
I generally don't recommend using Reddit at all, but there are people there, unfortunately. So, but I wanted to piggyback a little bit. I would avoid, if you're messaging someone that you look up to who's in a genre that you respect, or someone mid-size, I would avoid skipping straight to the collab bro, because I know for me personally, if I've just met somebody and it's like, so when are we collabing? Just kidding, unless, I'm like, that's a turnoff for me. But you know, starting a conversation with someone and sharing your content and asking what they think is like, it's pretty innocuous, and the worst that's going to happen is they don't pay attention and you can just move on with your life. And you made me think of something else. Locally, find, you know, look out for like Facebook events that are maybe within the genre that you care about, or look out for, you know, any sort of live music that's going on, or you know, there's even like, I know that there's like, sometimes there'll be like content creator summits where like people meet up and stuff, but you know, investing yourself and your time into your local community, no matter how small that community might be, you know, going to an open mic and just perceiving people performing and seeing if you like any of it, introducing yourself, you know, going to an open mic. And I used to go to open mics where people were playing acoustic guitars at coffee shops, and I would set up my laptop and be like, this is my work in progress I've been working on, and I just hit the space bar and pull a Red Panda in a coffee shop and just be raging while everyone's like sitting on couches like, you know. But I made a lot of friends that way, and now those connections have blossomed into like some of the most talented people that are still in my city. So, you know, getting out there to open mic nights and getting out there to local shows is another great way to meet people. But it's, you know, saying hello is the hardest part.
Yeah. Or you could just be like, hey, can I remix your song? And like generally people will be like, okay. That could be a good start too.
Yeah, and it's always flattering when someone asks permission, and the answer I always give is like, yeah, of course, like just do it. I wish you had done it already, you know. So does that maybe help a little bit? Cool. Anybody else? Yeah.
This is to anyone who would like to answer this question, or you know, if no one, don't answer it.
We'll just stay totally silent and stare at you. Yeah.
I don't want to be uncomfortable at all. My question is, so how essential would you say is for somebody who is doing electronic music and is also interested in doing video game music to be also a performer? Because right now I'm a media composer, I'm doing like a lot of music for projects, but that's mostly me working in the box, like orchestral, electronic, and I've started to recently like release my own stuff, and it did make me think, oh, you know, if I was performing it in some way, that would maybe help in like just reaching out to new audiences or whatever. But I've never done it, so I have no idea if I should start, if it's like a completely different sphere that would take like too much time to properly master.
I think I had an ADHD blip during your question somewhere. So what exactly, you asked how necessary is it to do what?
Live performance?
Oh, to perform live.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty crucial because like even getting in front of an audience of one, you have that chance, you know, you're sharing yourself with them, and if you show that you enjoy what you do and you show that passion, there's a chance that person's going to connect with it, and people's connection in a live setting is almost always going to be stronger than something that they're passively consuming while they're swiping through TikTok, right? Like, even if you just go to an open mic night and there's one person like, that's the coolest sound I've ever heard, like, I want to make stuff like that. You know, there's always that chance. So I would say pretty necessary. Yeah, like, because we're in a more oversaturated musical internet than ever. So just throwing your stuff on TikTok, that's basically you're playing roulette and you're betting on one number, right? Like the odds of you taking off are so low, and it's more on the internet, it's more of a slow grow, and it's planting seeds. But if you're playing an open mic night or you get on a local show, your odds of connecting with a person are much higher, and your odds of meeting someone who might want to collaborate with you or someone that you look up to are much higher. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Putting yourself out there in any way is always good, but the internet is a very, very tough place to break out. But a local show is you're much more accessible, and you're more in charge. You're commanding the room, right? People are conditioned to stare at you and pay attention. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's a great idea to put yourself out there in a live setting. Does anybody have anything to add on that?
I agree. You know, as somebody who's also done like a video game soundtrack and who performs live, I feel like it's absolutely important that you show the best side of what you can do, because if people are just listening to your music, they're not really seeing what part of the music you're connecting with, and they can't connect with you through that. You know, like, you can sit down and listen to something and like feel something, but when you watch somebody perform, it's a totally different experience. And I feel like, go ahead.
Well, and like, in particular, like the Red Panda's reels of him showing off his skills at playing the keyboard and the synth, that's the stuff that makes me go, wow. You know, like, even if you're just remixing a meme, you get on that synth solo. Every time I watch one of your reels, you end up doing a synth solo where I'm just like, whoa, like it's so good. And like, I already loved your music, but there's an additional wow factor because I'm seeing you do your whole thing with your whole heart, you know? And like, yeah, so.
It's like seeing your personality through something, you know? It's like, okay, let's use like Tinder
That's
for
context.
Let's use Tinder for an example, right? You know, you're on there, you see.
Where are you going with this?
Give me a sec.
Hear me out.
So, you know, you're on Tinder, right? You're swiping. I don't even use Tinder that much, but you're on Tinder.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
swiping.
okay, sure.
I don't. I've uninstalled and reinstalled Tinder several times.
He's recovering. No, I'm sorry, I'll stop roasting you. Moving my microphone away, I'm sorry, Jordan.
Anyway,
Tinder.
so yeah.
Tinder metaphor, sorry.
Like, you know, you're on Tinder, right? You see all the people and you're swiping and swiping, but you actually, if you decide to take the time to like swipe up and then look at the bio, it gives you a whole different perspective on that person. It's almost, that's how I kind of look at it. It's like, you know, you'll listen to a song and you're just swiping and swiping, listening, like skipping, you know, you hear the song and it's like, okay, cool. But then you see that person, you see their bio. Their bio could be your performance in real life. That's what's gonna change it for you. Because, you know, for me, I could see like a pretty face and be like, okay, she's cool. Nope. But then on the next one, I see a pretty face and then I see, oh, she likes Pokemon.
Oh my God,
Yes.
girls like Pokemon? All right, the whole panel has changed. We're talking about this. I had no idea. No, it's a good metaphor. It does hold up. I get what you're saying. It's the human element. It's the same reason people like vocals in music better than instrumental music, especially. Well, video game music fans are the other way. I don't sing on my video game. You ruined my childhood, but we're getting there. It's been 20 years. We're getting better. But
That's true though.
do you have anything to add about the human element? Yeah, I think you have an interesting perspective because you built everything online, primarily.
Yeah, I mean, my whole shtick is online. So I'm kind of at this weird place where, like, you hear people all the time that say, like, yo, Spotify monthly listeners doesn't mean shit. And I'm like, okay. I guess I'll, like, die. Because, I mean, like, but I do agree that, like, the personable element of things is extremely important, whereas like, yes, like I have the SEO, like if you look up video game remixes, I just so happen to show up, and then maybe you look and maybe you don't. That's really up to you. There's people that, like, lots of people listen to my music, but how many of them are like actually fans as opposed, like that's where like I was at MAGFest, and no, I was home at, I was like going up the escalator and somebody was like, had their like Beats Pill or whatever playing my JoJo Giorno's theme remix, and I'm like, I made that, and they're like, and they just like look up the escalator and they're like, wait, come back, and it's like they wanted to talk, and like.
I have the exact opposite of that story. May I interject?
Yeah.
I was at MAGFest in 2017. My Tem Shop remix from Undertale, the most popular thing that I've ever done. Some guy was walking around MAGFest that year with a boombox only playing Tem Shop Glitch Hop remix on loop every single day. And the first day, I'm like, this dude's I keep walking by this dude, and he's playing it, and there's like all these I'm walking by Temmie cosplayers being like, hoi, you know, and like, I walked up to this guy and I was like, hey, I made that. And he goes, no, you didn't. And he just walked away. I've never felt so like simultaneously somebody and nobody. Like, in his mind, like, this is way too good. There's no way this dweeb made the Tem Shop remix. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll die, you know? Something that I thought of while you were talking, though, is even just having a video, something moving instead of a still image, or, you know, just audio is so much, because most people perceive music as a background element. So your human element could just be a video of you performing, or even a video without your face, just some cool animation. You know, if you learn After Effects, you can make something that catches people's eye. If you can come up with a unique angle or some sort of, you know, that could be a human element that sets you apart, rather than just an upload on SoundCloud that's just a play button and a piece of artwork, you know? So really, I think the core of what we're getting at here is like, music is so oversaturated that you do need to put yourself out there, and you do need to find a human element for people to emotionally connect to. And to your original question, I think playing live and doing open mic nights and stuff is a really good way to do that. You know, it's a cheap Chromebook or whatever, like a cheap laptop, and an audio interface and a couple of 1/4-inch cables, that can get you playing your music in front of people, you know? Like, if you just have to deal with, like, being that awkward kid who's got a laptop, but, like, if the music's, you know, if you want people to hear it, you gotta get out there, so.
It's like a trifecta. You have to be making the music, you have to be playing the music, and then you also have to have, like, a vision in terms of aesthetic, visuals, imagery. It all creates a feedback loop where it creates the serotonin when you make that click in your head where you're like, oh, that person that I don't know what they look like is that guy or that girl or that person. Like, shoot, like, I need to talk to them. I want to say hi. I want to, like, ask them questions. I want to see them. I want to hear them. I want to support them. Having a logo, having aesthetics that show up in your album art, or how you deck out your SoundCloud banner, whatever, videos, like, it's all part of a thing. And, like, it's kind of bittersweet because you really get to make it personal. You get to make it your brand, and like, once you get to a certain stage, it's like, yeah, that's me, and, like, people recognize me for that. The bitter part is that, yeah, like, you have to do a lot of work that isn't just making the music. Yeah, and
I think to wrap it all in a little bow, I think that the more that you focus on your vision of how you want your music to be perceived, and the more you try to align that with, you know, music at its core should be expressing yourself. You should be expressing your emotions. I mean, sometimes you just do one for the kids, right? Like, especially on YouTube. My friend Ant Dude, he is a very popular YouTuber, and I think he says like 3 for them, 1 for me, something like that. And you basically, you know what your audience wants, and you give them 3 of those or 2 of those, and then you do one that's just for you, and you internalize that, like, these numbers aren't going to be as good because I'm not doing the fan bait thing or the fan service thing. But, you know, the more you are expressing yourself and thinking about how you want your vision to be perceived, the more, as you gain traction, the more that's going to become a self-actualizing force. And, you know, that way you don't end up, you know, 10 years down the line, you're like, oh, I've been making music for other people and I feel soulless. You know, like, you should be trying to share a part of your soul and your spirit through what you're doing. And that's a great way. If you don't know how to brand yourself, ask why you're doing it and try to brand around that, you know. Let's keep moving. Hopefully that helps. Any other questions about things? I swear I saw some other hands. Yeah.
So how do you make the song still danceable without just, like, hitting that every quarter?
So without a 4 on the floor beat, how do you make a song sound danceable? Now that's a question and a half. For me, the way I do it is if I'm writing a bass line or a drum part, or even some sort of percussive synthesizers or whatever, you need to be thinking, what would a real human rhythm section do, right? What would a drummer be playing? A drummer can't play with 3 hands. So maybe think, like, okay, and like a drummer who's playing a disco beat, he's probably going to get bored hitting the kick drum 1, 2, 3, 4 on the downbeats. He's probably going to put it on the offbeat every once in a while. Listen to rock and roll, listen to funk, listen to hip hop, listen to styles of music that aren't primarily electronic, and really listen to the way that the bass guitar player and the drummer are interacting with each other. And, you know, a fun thing that I like to do, really what we're talking about is establishing groove. And groove is kind of this nebulous thing, but for me, it's always, I'm imagining, what would a real drummer do in a jazz band? What would a real drummer do if we were playing a funk song? And, like, you know, I like to make my instruments collaborate with each other. So, like, I'll have, like, a kick drum pattern, and then once the kick drum pattern is done, I write the bass line to correspond with that. So some of those really important kick drum hits, or some of the syncopated ones, I make sure that the bass, you know, does like an up the octave slap on one of the upbeats on the kick drum. But that's how I do it. And a fun way to play with groove is to do something in an odd meter, like make a song in 5/4, make a song in 7/8, but experiment to where, like, you get a beat going where when you're listening to it, it doesn't sound like it's an odd meter. It doesn't sound like it's skipping. It's something where you like, someone could reasonably bob their head to it even though it's in an odd meter. But other people can speak on this if they want. I have opinions about groove, apparently.
I mean, I guess I can speak to this one a little bit, because I'm actually a drummer first. Like, out of any instrument that I play, drums are my first instrument. Yeah, a little trivia for you. But yeah, I will say, like as Ben said, like 4 on the floor is definitely gonna get boring. Like it hits all the time. It's always gonna hit, but it gets to a point where you do want to switch it up sometimes. I also recommend listening to like funk. Like funk is huge. Jazz is also very huge in terms of listening to changing up what your normal rhythm would be, because when you change it up, it's actually like exciting the ear. Like if you hear your generic EDM, whatever, it's like, but then you like change it up, like even if it's in that same song, you change it up, and then it gets the person's attention, because they're like, wait a minute, this isn't your normal, like now you gotta, and it's totally different. Like I feel like, go ahead.
Well, and the inverse of that, if you're committed to making a house track where the beat basically has to be 4 on the floor the whole time, you can use your bass instrument and your synth stabs to add a syncopation that makes it groovier and more danceable, as opposed to just everything hitting on the downbeats. Like if you're stuck with that groove and you're insistent on it, you can use your other instruments and rhythm to sort of make it feel a little bit more human. I think that humanization is probably the most overlooked aspect in dance music, and a lot of people struggle to make their instruments sound like a person is actually playing them. And that just comes from, you don't even have to play an instrument to know what someone would play. You just need to listen to actual instruments being played and start to pick up on those things. Like chiptune instruments shouldn't just be like a flat beep on and off. Like add some vibrato, add some volume envelope that makes it sound like a voice singing. Like what would a person be playing instead of just like beep, like that's a flat line. So anyway,
a great example in terms of artists would be Jake Kaufman. He did the soundtrack for
legend.
Shovel Knight. That is like the perfect person to listen to in terms of like changing up what you would normally hear, because he hits every aspect of like, from like the Digifusion to just your like what you would hear in old NES games. He hits it on the head every time. Yeah. And
all of Vert's music sounds so humanized. And I watched a stream once, and he was literally just like slamming beers, and like he just plays in the parts until he messes up, and he cuts it and he deletes the messed up part, and then he starts from there, and he just goes. He wrote a whole Shovel Knight song in 1 hour for a 1 hour competition, and that ended up in the game, and I watched him make it. He's just slamming beers and playing until he plays a wrong note, cut, keep going, and he did that for every single instrument, and it was like an hour, and he's like, okay, it's done, and it's like one of the best tracks on the soundtrack. Also, shout outs to VG Mix. Jake Kaufman was one of the first people to start any sort of alternative to OC Remix. Those are very tumultuous days, but VG Mix 2 was lit. That's all I have to say. It was. We gotta talk later. You guys have anything to add about danceability outside of 4 on the floor?
This is just like a very specific example, but one of the ways that I like to do, like if there's a track like the lake theme from Pokemon, Diamond and Pearl, it's a waltz, and then it goes into like a really fast like common time part. I kind of didn't want to do that because that's a lot, but the great thing about anything that's in a waltz meter and like tempo is that you can turn that into a triplet beat. Done. Then you can take that triplet beat and you're like, damn, it keeps hitting on every beat now, and that's annoying. Then you make it halftime, and now it's like slow dubstep, and you can mix that all in. If you're like I'm working on an original track right now that's a triplet waltz, and then the drop is halftime because it's cool and it's like dark and vibey, rather than like it subverts expectations. So that's the whole thing, is like it's not just, I mean, groove is really important, and like that's like creating that bass line is super important, and having that, like having a motif is super important, but maybe equally as important is a tasteful subversion of expectations.
I want to use real quick one of Nick's other songs that I think is a great example. His Pokemon Mystery Dungeons remix, the battle theme. It's what time signature is that in?
6/4, and then I did 6/4 to like there's 4 different time signatures in that track, or 7/4, and then 6/4, and then 3/4, and then common time. So it's like everything.
I don't know if we have a hard cutoff at.
Oh shoot. Yeah.
But I want to get maybe some rapid fire questions going. Did you have one still? What's up?
I did, just real quick, off the top of your head, for all of you. What is your favorite video game soundtrack and why?
Okay. Like gun to your head, pick one.
Yeah, just
I hate this question.
I'm just gonna go with Zelda because it's classic. Zelda because it's classic. Ocarina of Time. There you go.
Ocarina of Time. Okay. You're valid for that.
Tie between Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Mario Galaxy.
For me, it would either be Sonic R or Pokemon Mystery Dungeons.
The deep cuts.
With lyrics or without?
Oh, dude, with lyrics. Are you kidding me?
Gun to my head, Desert Island. It's gotta be Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy Color. But runners-up are definitely like Diddy Kong Racing, Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. For me, video game music is all about context, and any game that sounds perfect in its own context, like Banjo-Kazooie, one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, I can't listen to that in my free time. Like I have to, it doesn't make sense if I'm not playing as Banjo and Kazooie, right? It's not that it's bad, but it's just like, it is so intertwined perfectly with it was so designed for what it is that like it elevates both, but it's 1 + 1 = 3, you know? I feel the same way about Link's Awakening. There's a lot of weird stuff in there, but those weird moments like really drive it home. But yeah, Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy Color is probably the most influential soundtrack from my childhood. We can skip over the why probably. Do you want to give why?
It's cool. I like it.
It's I remember from when I'm small. But yeah, those are all good picks, honestly. Any other? Yeah.
Any memorable moments from like a live performance?
I have too many. How many are appropriate to share? You guys go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. Actually, how I met you, Jed. So I actually met Jed. So I was rapping at a Sign concert with Star. And, they did the New Job is Feather song collab. And, I was rapping about video games. Video games. And then, like, later after the show, Jed comes up to me. He's like, yo, you play video games? I'm like, hell yeah. And then we've been friends ever since. And here we are, like, 9 years later.
This question was bait. Do you have one?
I don't know. It happens basically, depending on how big the crowd is, it's the same thing. But like knowing those beats that like you didn't maybe expect to hit, and you expected certain ones to hit, and you're like, oh, like nobody cares. And then you do the one. It's literally like releasing music. It's the same thing. Yeah. And then you play a song, and everybody's like, oh, fuck. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess like you like this one, and then you just kind of own it.
I suppose this one is a banger.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know it was a banger. I've got a good one. I'm gonna censor some of it, but I was playing, I think this was St. Louis Anime Convention. I was a younger man at the time, and I was maybe a little too intoxicated. And the person who got me the gig, he was one of the DJs. I will describe him as the drunkest man I've ever known. And just a professional at being way too drunk. And I was too drunk to DJ. Don't do this, by the way. It's socially acceptable to drink on the job as a DJ. I don't recommend it. It's okay to stay sober. Don't feel pressured to drink just because you're DJing. It's fine. DJs become alcoholics for this reason. So anyway, I'm a recovering alcoholic and I'm wasted. And I'm like laughing up there. The drunkest man I've ever known comes up and he's like, dude, what's going on? And I'm like on the CDJ's like, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's like, full dad mode. This dude's had like 12 beers. Full dad mode. He like grabs the knobs and fixes what I'm doing, and he just looks at me dead in the face and says, stop. And I'm like, uh-oh, he's mad at me. Like if this dude's saying I'm too drunk, I'm too drunk. So I get on the microphone. Also my little cousin is in the front row. This is the first time we've ever hung out outside of like a family reunion. and she's an adult now, so she's blasted, and everyone's having a great time. It's a party. It's a con rave. I get on the mic, and I'm like, hey, who's messed up? And everyone's like, ah! And I'm like, yeah, I'm messed up. And I'm just honest with them. I just own it. I'm like, hey, I'm a little too messed up. I'm gonna need your help right now. I need you to give me your energy. So they all bring it in, and I do this, and I'm like, give me your, and they all start doing this. And I get all emotional, and I recenter myself, and I have this like moment of sobriety, and I get control of everything, and I spend the rest of my set playing Rebirth. I think it's called Rebirth by Ramses B. If you don't know what it is, it's not exactly rave music. It's all chill hop and chill trap, and it's like it's like the most psychedelic like eagle sounds and like nature sounds, and I literally just played basically the whole album of no bangers whatsoever. I'm crying, they're crying, my cousin is crying, we're all having a great time. It's the most emotional, it's great music, but they didn't pay me to do that. And I didn't notice, but half the crowd left, and afterwards my handler was like, yeah, we got a lot of complaints about you. And I was like, oh no, is it because I was unprofessional? And they're like, no, it's because you played really boring music for 30 minutes to make yourself feel better. And I was like, but the people who stayed really liked it. And the moral of, I guess the end of that story is they never invited me back, so.
But you're still here.
I'm still here. I'm weathered now.
Should I even go? I mean, like.
The best is yet to come.
Oh God.
Yeah, what do you got?
I mean, okay, this is actually very recent. I had like back-to-back gigs. I had, a gig on, it was like a Friday, and then a gig on Saturday. I was at a con. But the previous night, and I know you know, one of my friends from high school came to my show. It was a rave that I put together myself, and she hugged me, and cool, whatever. And after she hugged me, I had just perfume on me, just like I couldn't smell any air. I got no oxygen. It was just perfume, and I had my RedPanda hoodie on, so I didn't want to take it off because photo ops, right? Like I don't want to like miss that opportunity.
Brand.
So I'm up there performing. I don't have any water on me either, so I'm like dehydrated. By the end of the night, my uvula is like this big. And I had an allergic reaction to her perfume. And so I couldn't breathe. I woke up the next morning, I'm like, why is my throat still like sore? And I looked in the mirror, and my uvula was sitting like on top of my tongue. So I couldn't talk. Like I was gagging. I couldn't do anything. I sat in urgent care for like 4 hours.
What was in the perfume?
I don't know.
That's wild.
Whatever it was, it almost took me out. But I had a anime gig the next day, and I couldn't talk. So luckily, I had my friend who's actually sitting right there. He was my Google Translate for the day because I could not talk whatsoever. So yeah, that was great, and my uvula was swollen for like the rest of that week. It was great.
That's so scary.
Yeah, that took a turn.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's our time. I think this was an hour-long panel. Thank you so much for the great questions. Just to wrap up, if you are interested in joining the Tiny Waves community, please just find me after this. We have a whole easy process for you to get in. We'll just hook you up with the email, and we'll get you in the server. It's just a server full of hand-selected people. If you're interested in making music and not being a dick about it, that's what we're all about. And I'm going to be on a panel at 6 p.m. with The Completionist, my good friend and my boss, probably just heckling him while he tries to talk about important things. But that'll be tonight at 6. That's The Completionist panel. I'll be there. And then tomorrow night in the main event stage from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., we are doing the main stage DJ block with TheRedPanda, myself, VGR, Hyper Potions, and Find the Rabbit, and that's going to be insane. It's the most insane I can't believe they let me have such an insane lineup. I'm truly going to be incredible. So don't miss it. We will also have merch available, but again, if you want to get involved with the community, it's very easy. Just ask me. I'm going to be hanging out right outside the doors here, and we can make it happen. But please come to the rave tomorrow. It's going to be insane. It's going to be, it's our first year back after 3 frickin' years. And on Sunday, we're doing the pool party.
Pool party.
With Ray Reck also doing a DJ set for the pool party, and then myself and 808, my hitman, we're going to be doing a very ratchet set as our duo Jams Bond. And we will have surprise appearances from any of our DJ friends who happen to have USB sticks. I think, Ray, you also have other appearances, right?
I have a panel actually right before the pool party. I also have 6 USBs on me, just saying.
True.
Stay ready. Keep that thing on me. Okay, anyway, so yeah, I'll be doing a DJ like production panel right before the pool party. I believe at 11 to 12 on Sunday.
And then are you also doing something with the
yeah, that's
Nerdcore
right.
block?
So you're right. Thank you so much. So actually tonight we're doing a beat set. So I have my sampler. So we're going to be dropping like 30-minute beat sets. It's from 9 to 11. And then also on Saturday we're doing the Nerdcore Cypher, where everybody raps about their favorite fighter.
Yeah, do not miss the Nerdcore content this year. The Rap Nerd got like the craziest lineup. It's
Yo.
the best of the best.
Yo.
So that's all the things we're doing this weekend. If you want to get involved with Tiny Waves, just let me know. And please buy our merch because Orlando's very far away and I'm very tired. And the lighter you make my bag, the less money I have to spend on it. No, we brought merch because we like it. But, you know, come to the rave. It's going to be insane. Come to the pool party. It's going to be insane. Let me know if you want to get involved. And thank you so much. You guys are great. Round of applause for yourselves. Orlando thanks you. Come see us in Orlando sometime. It's fun down there, I swear.